gentlemen, this is the DevOps India Summit, and I'm Riya Kumar, your host for this beautiful day. I welcome all of you to our next power packed session. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next DevOps champion who's going to come to our screens is listed as one of the top women leaders in the field of technology and cybersecurity in India, working in various communities such as InfoSec Girls, InfoSec Kids, and WoSec. Our seasoned speaker is also the chapter leader for OWASP in Bangalore. She is currently serving as a security relations leader at Sneak. She is joining us now to shed some light on the security building aspects of a business and share her knowledge on where to start from when it comes to business, when it's come to building security in an enterprise. So, ladies and gentlemen, without much further ado, with your hearty round of applause, please help me welcome Miss Vandana Verma.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much,
Vandana,
Ria.
a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Ria. It's an honor to be here. And the way you introduce me, it's always makes my heart warm. It's amazing. And it's an honor to be a keynote speaker at DevOps India Summit. I've been a speaker for a few years and associated with DevOps India Summit, with you, with Niladri, and everyone around. And it's just make me feel so happy that this year I got a chance to be a keynote speaker here. I'm honored. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So let's go ahead and get my screen shared and get started with the session. But before that, let me tell you about what this is all about. So, this is about how much businesses are secure. We talk about DevOps, we talk about DevSecOps, but how exactly this is going to spin across? Why do we even talk about businesses now? Because that's how everything runs. And a lot of times the conversation is about, oh, this person is doing DevOps, this person is doing DevSecOps this way, we should be doing this way because it's successful. There's one thing that I've learned: no two people can have the same practices, similar way, or same thought process. No two companies can have the similar practices, or even though they try and do it, the people, process, technology, coding, everything would be different. So there has to be a unique process that goes into that. But how much is security playing a role in the business? That's what we're going to be talking about. And the most important aspect is that let's go through the agenda. Here, we would be talking about current state of DevOps, DevSecOps, and open source. We'd be talking about how iceberg is melting and how exactly it's making up the whole business perspective. Then we'll be touching upon a little bit around supply chain security. We can't leave a talk without supply chain security because that's what is a hot topic. That's what is the talk of the town, and we need to understand how exactly it's spinning across. And why does that even matter, especially for businesses? And what are the learnings, what we have from it? Now, what is DevOps? We've all heard about it, we've all known about it. That DevOps is a combination of different culture, philosophies, practices, tools, and everything. And then it also makes sure that there's a cross cultural emphasis that's done. There's a trust that's getting built between different teams. Earlier everyone is in silo, now they're working together to make sure the product, the application, the software that comes out of it is a better version of it, and everyone knows what's happening around, because earlier nobody knew what's happening. But then DevOps also emphasizes that let's talk that continuous integration, testing, delivery, everything is all joined, and it's under one umbrella. Rather than scattered, rather than people not knowing what's happening in different practices, everyone knows everything. Be it DevOps, be it dev team, be it ops team, architects team, security team, or any team. In a nutshell, this is the loop which I'm not going to go because we've all looked at it. When we talk about DevSecOps, this is a loop that comes into picture. But what I do want to talk about is that the DevSecOps team patterns. So this is a beautiful picture that I actually took it from my friend Patrick Du Bois, and I totally love it. especially when we talk about DevOps collaboration, fully shared ops responsibilities. Why do we even want to look at them? Think of the situation, because dev team is working, ops team is working, security team is working, DevSecOps is enough, isn't it? And everyone says the same thing. But then it also emphasizes on a very important aspect that we need to have evangelists in these security teams who can help gauge the security thing, and not just security but business as well, because if something happens to an app, business is going for a toss. And we want to make sure when we are talking about the newer technologies like containers, Kubernetes, all those APIs, all those microservices, and anything that you take it for that matter, that is considered while we are talking about. And if a practice is not working, let's change that. It is not like I'm following this practice, it's working till now, and then suddenly it starts to fail, and you can't change the practice. But what it is all about is that if a practice is not working, if a way of working is not working, let's go ahead and change it to something else, which can actually help us understand and may move towards the betterment of the application. Now, why it matters? Because it's a collaboration and communication, making sure that we are trying to be customer centric, and it's not we are trying to be, but we are. And it also talk about innovation and continuous improvement, and that's what we want. We want to make sure that all the teams are collaborative, we are concentrating on our customers or the people inside the organization, be it external or internal, it doesn't matter. But we want to make sure that anything that comes out of it is beautiful. It's something what we want or what we are looking for. And at the same time, if we have a product, it doesn't mean that we can't improve that. And the same values go for our in our lives, in our organizations, and everywhere. It's not just about DevOps, but in general business. But do we see any challenges as well there? At least what I can see sometimes, that there are certain challenges which exist. But what are those challenges, and why do we even consider them, or why should we even talk about them? Because if we don't look at the failures, we would never have our wins. People say, oh, learn from their wins. But at the same time, I have mentors, I have friends, I have people around me who say, learn from other failures too. Learn their story so that you don't make those same mistakes. And those challenges can be in any form. Could be wherein a business has a point wherein let's do this, but it's not happening because we are moving to cloud. But cloud native environments, how shall we even set it up? There is so much going on. We all know that in the past few years, we have gone through a phase wherein we never thought that we would be moving to cloud fully. But now we've seen most of the organizations, or a lot of the organizations, have moved to the cloud who even did not plan for it, but they had to run the business. That was a big challenge, the first and the foremost challenge. And what that challenge also embraced is that how shall we actually look at different perspectives? How should we look at different practices that we have in our organization? And the most important part is that why do we even consider these things? Why do we even talk about these things? Because we have increasing velocity and we don't want to compromise on security and the compliance aspect. We want to adopt cloud native architectures and processes, but without understanding them, it's going to be really, really tough. We want to provision and configure the infrastructures which are new, which are latest. But how about those automated controls which are there? They need to be there, right? If we don't have these automated controls, how are we going to run those businesses? Integrate, because we want to integrate different tools, third party libraries, open source, in house languages. I have seen organizations creating their own tools, but are they just fully secure because they are built in house? Maybe, maybe not. But then that's helping in automating controls. We're going to come to that point as well where we are building in house things for businesses. Now, it all lead to a very important aspect is enforcing policies. based on the data. And why do we say that? Because till the time we don't understand the data, how can we say that we are secure? Especially from a perspective that we want to enforce these policies and secure the whole tool chain. We need to maintain security and compliance. We are seeing so many things happening around, and we say, let's have compliance. But then it's the checklist. It is just a tech checklist, at least not in my perspective. We need to have and we need to make sure while we are dealing with all of this, we understand there's a unified way of compliance that has to be there for different roles, responsibilities, stakeholders, and we address those issues. If there is a problem, we gather the right evidence whenever it's needed. It is not like, oh, something has happened and now we are trying to gather it for the business. No, we need to have a standard approach for it so that everyone understands that this is a basic hygiene that we need to follow. A lot of times we don't do that, and that's what puts us in trouble. That doesn't stop there. These are some business issues, challenges that are there where we need to embrace the cloud native environments, automate things. We need to make sure that security and compliance are in place. But what about those software issues, the software attacks that are happening around? We talk about DevOps, we talk about DevSecOps, and especially we are at DevOps India Summit. So software attacks are like so common that we need to talk about. So what are they? And I'll tell you, here there are so many, but I am talking about some of my favorites. Because they're actually shaking the whole world, software world specifically. So typo squaring attacks are like funny, but they're actually legit attacks. Why? Because if you think of the malicious actors, what they do is change just a small thing in a repo. They create a new repo with a small, slight change in the name. And you don't sometimes get to know. I am a person when I type, I do a lot of typo mistakes. Like it's so common. And everybody keeps telling me that, Vandana, don't make these mistakes. It can be a problem. Similarly, anyone can do it. And people do it. If you see on the screen that there is npm install react, just a small name change, who knows it? Who types it? And you download the repo, which is malicious. What will you do next? There could be a problem with the tool chain. And these attacks are actually happening at a very large scale. It's not just one person doing it. There are many, many people who does this mistake. We are humans. We make mistakes. But does it impact business? Yes, at a huge cost. If the software is vulnerable from the get go itself, how are you going to address those issues? How are you going to address those challenges? And on top of it, if the packages are malicious, uh, so you are a fan of some software, you start using it, or you need certain softwares. I keep downloading a lot of softwares which I need, which I feel could be relevant for the way I work, for something which is new that's coming up. But if there is something malicious that's injected as part of the software product, and you start using it, how things can go wrong in your software repository, especially if the maintainer repository itself is compromised. What can go wrong? You trust the maintainer, you trust the project, but then there's a malicious person who's monitoring it, who's actually tracking everything, who has certain malwares, ransomware, or maybe something, maybe remote code execution, which is part of the code. What will you do? And why do I say that? I'll give you an example. If you see, there's a compromise that it happened with this particular thing, wherein just this year beginning, Caller and Faker. These were two famous libraries as part of the ecosystem of npm.js or JavaScript. Now, people were using these libraries, but one fine day, maintainers could not support it. Maintainer wanted the support for the project, but then there was very less support. So the person, what he did, added an infinite loop condition to the package. Now, whosoever downloaded that package now has the loop condition. So if you're using that package and you're executing it, you're part of the loop itself. What will you do? Similarly, for the faker, what they did, they removed lot of packages itself, or lot of content from the package. So package started to break. What was the reason? This is what maintainer posted here, wherein the person could not support the project because this is not for the money, or this isn't just for the support but for the money as well, because the project needs money to run, the project needs resources to run. Now what it tells us, shouldn't we support the open source? We should. Shouldn't we use the open source? We should. That's what business needs. And is it going to decrease any which ways the open source? No, it is not. But what it tells us that we need to be very careful when you use these, or when we use these packages or open source packages. It comes with its own security risks. And why do we say that? Why? Because especially if I talk about my app, this is my vision of an app where all of this thing is written as a code. I'm using it and I'm liking it. And this is what is working out for me. But think of a situation where this is the actual case. How? Because only this much code, the red dot, is what is written within the company, within an organization, or in house. Rest all code is open source. We're so much dependent on open source code that we tend to miss out on the issues that exist, especially if you talk about this average issue that is there, wherein average number of outstanding or critical vulnerabilities in an application is huge, especially different programming languages. There are so many reports that highlight that. Even if I talk about Ponemon Institute research report, which talks about vulnerabilities and misconfiguration, it's huge. And on top of it, Linux Foundation and Seek just came up with open source security report that highlights that 80 to 90% of the code is all open source. And we need to look at the most important aspect is, which is understanding where misconfigurations can happen, especially from a perspective where how those things should be handled. Now if I have to give an example where, how should I do it, what should I do it, and why do I need to embrace this? I don't even want it, I don't even know it. All of these questions keep coming up, that it's so normal. But then, is it just that? Like, especially for the challenges that we are facing and the issues that are there with the business, think of dependencies. How many dependencies are we using? Tremendous, tremendous. Even my own application, full of open source content. Is it up to date? Maybe, or maybe not. If I don't know what I have, how would I even take care of that? So, this is my favorite example wherein if you don't know about your house, how would you secure that? So if you have four windows and five doors in your house, and when you're going for a vacation, you close all the doors but miss out on closing one window, what could go wrong in that situation? What could be the problem? That one window, if somebody gets through that and steals all your stuff, that's a big flaw in that. And you don't even know when to fix it because you didn't know that this was open. And that's what average number of days it takes to fix a vulnerability. It sometimes months to fix a vulnerability. We have seen cases like Equifax, Log4j, and whatnot. Especially Log4j came up with its own lessons, wherein we started talking about these newer things. Let me show you about it. Organizations of different sizes are reliant on software. If I say I am an enterprise and I'm not, trust me, that's a facade. Every business is reliant on software which is open source, even though they say it or not, at least 90% of it. Much of the software in the supply chain consists of open source component. The whole supply chain talks about that. And not just that, there are multiple implications of that as well. where uh, people can enter it as a legitimate user, but then could be they are dangerous to to an organization. Or uh, I'll give you a classic case with an event stream incident. So event stream is a package which came into existence in 2011. What happened with that is that people started using, there were millions of downloads per week that was happening. At certain point, the maintainers got busy with the stuff, and that happens a lot of times. But with that came a very important aspect. People started to say that I want to volunteer. What's best than that? If I am not able to work on a project and somebody says, I want to help out, I need helping hands. I need people to support my project. There's nothing more graceful and beautiful than that. But then there came an important aspect. We started taking help. After a while, after a few releases, there was a small change that was happened in the code. What was that? A crypto miner was added as part of the code. With a crypto miner came those attacks that we didn't even anticipate. That all the people who were exist or executing, all the organizations who had that package had that crypto miner in that. People didn't even know for a very long time. When started monitoring and realizing there's something fishy that is happening. And that's where these small defects people don't even get to know. If I talk about log4shell or log4j or any name that you want to give it to, seems fancy, seems actually important. But is it new? Think of this. Is it new? What happened in 2017 with Equifax, where Apache 2.3 had issues? A lot of organizations didn't even know that they had it. Everyone was panicking. We had sleepless nights. Not just we, developers, testers, everyone was trying to figure out why. Because we didn't maintain a proper repository of it. A lot of organizations didn't do it. And let's accept it. Till the time we don't accept it, what we are missing out, we would never be able to improve. And that's what leads us to supply chain ecosystem. And supply chain is affecting everyone. Think of a physical supply chain. What used to happen? Uh, Somebody would be picking up raw material, making it, sending it to the warehouse, will be delivering it to somewhere, then people start selling it. The whole chain, from picking up the raw material, building up something, to setting up in to keeping it in a warehouse, to delivering it in a store, to start using it. The whole supply chain. Can there be security issues anywhere? Absolutely, in any of the places where things can be stolen, things can be broken, things can go in any wrong direction. And that's what happens with supply chain attacks. If I talk about the most classic case where we were thinking about solar winds. Now, why did we even talk about solar winds? Why were we even thinking of it? Solar winds attack was a big one, like really a big one, where people started thinking, oh, now we need to start understanding that, oh, like there is a problem in that. But it is new. It has been there for ages. These attacks are there within many ecosystems. Solar winds came into limelight because it became a big one. But is it just the only attack that has happened? How about others that are there? Especially this one became important because it was a big company. The attackers attacked the whole infrastructure behind the solar winds, which provides the network and application monitoring platform called Orion. But then it would have been a non-security company. What would have gone wrong? Could be something else as well. You are making news. You don't want to be in news. You are securing the applications. You don't want to get breached. That's the kind of things that are there. But security company can also be breached if there is a misin. Especially if I talk about SolarWinds software supply chain attack, which actually allow the attackers to access the network of many cybersecurity companies, which actually highlighted there's something wrong which is going on. And that's when FireEye, Microsoft, all of these companies came into picture and started addressing these concerns and highlighted that yes, we need to fix it because the analysis showed it. But is it just that? How about the other attacks which are there? How about different attacks which have been part of it? Like, one second, dependency confusion type of scaring query attacks. Are they new? No, they have been there. I want to download something, but I download something else because of these small typo squaring mistakes. How about these container issues? We download the container from a non-recognized repository or from a recognized repository, but then there's a malware embedded as part of the get-go itself. What will you do? And then these small issues with bad code, with Visual Studio Code. What you do? Then Code Cove. That again become a big and it challenged the whole business that you need to think differently. You need to address these issues. Talk about SolarWinds in the build tool itself. I am building a tool, then I have a malicious library in it. I have a malicious binary. I don't even know it, even though I've scanned it, where things can go wrong. And especially consumers, they don't even get to know a lot of times. So, aren't we supposed to help the business making sure that we are helping our consumers to stay secure? breaches are uh, breaches are here to stay. They will be there. They have been there. They're inevitable. We can't do much about them. But what we can do is then we can follow a security hygiene. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of lighter things here. A lot of content, but here it's going to be a little lighter. So let's say higher to the iceberg, which actually makes up the whole software security business ecosystem. So the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is just the code that is actual code. But then we have open source code. And as mentioned by me in the beginning, 80 to 90% of the code is all open source, and only 10 to 20% is the code that we write. But it is just the application that it makes up? No. Then comes containers, function as a service, static sites, and whatnot. And that's where the containerization, different applications, especially if I have to give you AWS Lambda function is one of my favorite ones, where function as a service has become revolutionized. Okay, sorry for the tongue twister. Then infrastructure as a code, where we want to make sure that we spin up instances beautifully. We want Terraforms, we want CloudFormation scripts, we want Kubernetes, and we want everything around. But aren't there any issues in that? There are, which we don't even address a lot of times, most of the times. And that's what it leads to misconfigurations. Infrastructure as a code is one big concern and benefit as well. Why do I say that? Because with these newer things, newer technologies, we're able to spin up our business to a greater extent, especially at the time of sale. You want bigger business, you want to spin up more instances, you want to handle the load. It's beautiful. But then it comes with its own cost. That if we don't have the right configuration from the very beginning, while we are writing it, or we are checking it out, then there could be misconfigurations. So today itself, I was just checking out a picture which people have posted about this is important, that is important. We're talking about war, we are talking about death, we are talking about this, we are talking about that. But then misconfiguration, misinformation is a one big challenge. And the compromise happens there when we leave the small mistake there, when we leave the smallest of things there. But then there are people who are here to help out. So, how developers can help us? Like, they're there to help out with developer first security, where we empower our devs with tooling, where we want to make sure that there's actionability. And not just that, we accelerate delivery with DevOps. How? We collaborate with different people. We make sure that we have right processes. We have products in place, but we should have the right culture. We can have everything, but if we don't have the right culture, we are in trouble. Trust me. And most importantly, if we want to have a right security mechanism, we need to have a proper security stack, understanding what, when, why, and how we need it. We want to make sure that application is secure and operated security. So we need to understand what's the actual stack that we follow. How are we managing the APIs? How are we managing the users? What is the security framework? Sometimes we don't even know it. We just move towards it. But then another important aspect is with the testers. But why do we even consider testers in that? Because selecting the right tool set is important for strong workflow, for the strong security mechanism. But till the time we don't use the right testing mechanisms, it will fall. Now, that also starts with continuous testing. It can happen at the very beginning where the code is developed and then we start testing. But then this continuous testing can actually be continuous automation where you check out in every interval what has changed, what can go wrong, how things can go wrong. The most important aspect is that it is on the forefront and we don't want to take it at the backstage that, oh, we will do it later. No, it is continuous testing has to happen from a security perspective. We can't leave the security and say that there's a breach that has happened and business is impacted and we are not able to do anything. Let's start from the very beginning. And that's why people talk about shift left strategies. Functional testing has been there forever and that is going to be there. People know about it, that we want to make sure that the the application is tested properly. But let's give it a security angle to it, a DevSecOps angle, where we want to ensure that all the pieces of the code, all the pieces of the applications are operating correctly. At the same time, we are testing it to make sure they are ready for regression, for sanity, and for whatnot. And at the same time, we're also making sure that if, let's say, there's a pre-release or regression testing which is there, it actually passes the security checks. There can be a number of things from DAST to manual testing of the application, which is common. But then remember one thing, let's test it out. That's why continuous testing, functional testing, API testing, pre release regression testing, and the integration testing, the tools that are integrated as part of the whole process, they are tested properly. I'll give you an example here. I have been on both the fences as a developer, as a security person. But there's one thing I've learned. If I start speaking the person language with whom I'm interacting, it's going to be more meaningful. If you are a developer and I start speaking in language where I start uh, submitting the bugs in the language you understand, like Jira or any other tool that you use, GitHub pull requests, you would like it and you will start working on it. And when I start explaining you things, if you are a security leader or a business leader and you say, why does it even matter? And I start showing you the numbers that, okay, these were the bugs that we reported earlier. Now we have fixed this much, and this is how much positive impact it's creating. It is going to change things. And that's what we need. Let's talk in the language people actually want to hear. It is very, very important to be on the same page as they are. Or there will be communication issues, there will be understanding issues which we do not want. And here it's not just testing team but operations team as well which can help. So I picked up this beautiful diagram from Department of Defense. So they have created this where they've talked about the whole workflow from tooling to understanding where exactly artifacts can be there, build, testing, container registries. You need everything, and that has to have a integration with the right tool sets. Now, important aspect to remember: you can do all of these tests, can have the report from these tests, but if you don't act upon them, it is as good as not doing that. And that's where security come into picture, where security team says that you're doing good, you're testing the code, You're testing the application, doing the threat modeling, everything is good, all beautiful. But if you don't understand where things can go wrong, could be a big problem, especially from a defense and depth perspective where we need to go in depth. So we need to understand our inventory, assets. It is not just the network which needs to be addressed from a perspective where we need to manage the assets, but from all aspects. Let's understand what we have. Then only we would be able to act upon it. I mentioned the word hackers, but then hackers are good too. We are hackers in a way. But then attackers, malicious people, you don't even know where they attack the business. And that's what it means, where we need to leverage security tools, embrace the automation, understand the security policies, and not stop there but have a proper repository, a database management system, a system which actually monitors all the libraries contain the assets that we have, a CMDB system, an SBOM, software bill of material that helps us out. Even more that we need to make sure that when we talk about containers, we don't run them as root. We don't use the privileged containers. We don't drop the capabilities where we need them, or we don't start using every capability. We need to make sure we understand the whole system before we start using it. So, let me tell you from a perspective where we have seen that injection attacks have been so common and they've impacted hugely, immensely to any ecosystem. Why? They happened there when we were kids. We've grown up, they're here. When our kids are going to grow up, we're going to see that. Why? Aren't we addressing them? We are addressing them. But then the small thing is the basic hygiene of it, which we are missing out on. We want to use the latest and greatest technologies that's in the market. But what it also brings us, the security issues. So what we need to start doing is let's understand what is there. If we are using a language, let's train our developers, let's train our security team to understand how it functions, and on top of it, how we can add security flavor to it. Security cannot be afterthought, can never be afterthought, not for a security person, not for the business, not for the security tester, and we'll all have to work towards it. And if I talk about infrastructure as a code in that perspective, secrets become a very big issue. Role based access control is a big concern because we need to give the security context to it. We start using everything, but will it address everything? All the issues? Maybe not. Why? We have a huge network. And now zero trust is a big term, which is coming up everywhere. But that's true that we can't trust everyone. We need to have these gatekeepers. We need to have these Kyberno, all of these things to stop these issues from coming up. We need to monitor and log the things properly. We need to understand what are the critical resources. We need to understand why do we even need those logs. It is not like, oh, I need these logs, let's start gathering it. And it's a huge chunk, but we don't use them often. Or they're not actually relevant, but we want it, let's use it. No. Understand what's needed. Let's build the use cases so that we capture the relevant and the accurate activities. And it does not stop there. Continuous monitoring of those environments are very important. That's why we need to handle and prepare ourselves for the incidents. How? Let's have an emergency plan where we document our critical incidents. How did we handle? How are we going to handle? Agree on who's going to be responsible for it. Identify the right stakeholders. And if we know it, we escalate it on time. Understand what could be the high severity incidents that can be there, knowing that yes, this will be the disaster recovery plan, that if something happens, this is how it's going to be, and we need to make sure that we have a high availability of it, because if we don't have the high availability of the critical assets, we're going to be in trouble. Now, this is for the people who are very active on social media. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Like if you look at my LinkedIn, almost every other day I post something. But I feel like posting that this is relevant for the people around me and I learn from them, so I post it. But then there are people who are Instagram stars, who are Twitter stars, who have immense followership. But if that goes down for a minute, what will happen? There could be big issues. So everything needs to be on top. It is not just about certain applications, but about the whole business. And that's where we need to actually start practicing DevSecOps important practices. And it's not just that I'm saying it, so you should follow it, but these are the practices which people have been following. And I have learned some of these, I've just picked up some of it and why they are important. So if you look at my screen, these iterative development is something which is a way of bringing up new things. And it also talks about breaking down the software development of this big application, massive application, into small chunks. So we need these iterative development processes. Agile has its own challenges, but then organizations cannot resist without adoption. It has to have, we need to start up and buckle up, start moving towards these newer practices. There are times when there are inconsistent practices. There are times when we need to follow certain aspects. We need to have those right activities involved. And especially cloud, oh my God, we need to adopt. And we need to adopt zero trust as well. Whether we say it, whether we accept it or not, we have to use it. And why do I say that? Because we are moving to the cloud. If you're not moving to the cloud in-house, then also we need to understand, we need to secure our legacy systems. We need to work towards making sure that all our languages are secure, all our workflows are secure, and which is catering to our business. Whatever we say, we need to have an environment where even if I'm sleeping, I know about my dev environment, my environment, which actually makes it even the more secure. Now, there are some beautiful key takeaways here. Just like unit, uh, fast, actionable security feedback is critical. We also need to we need to make sure that we talk to everyone around in the business so that we understand everyone's perspective, what it is, how it is, and what can we do to work towards it. Now, when we're working towards it, how security can be part of it. So we need to empower not just developers, but the people who are working on ground on it. If we don't empower, we're going to be in big trouble. And that's why we need to have those defense and depth understanding of our own ecosystem, where we implement secure practices. We build and run the container images. We securely use them. We have the right configurations. We mitigate all the newer vulnerabilities that come into picture. So we need to have a basic understanding of how exactly it can be done. So let's start working towards that. And most important aspect is that how we can kickstart in working towards that. There's no deadline for it, but understand how the data can be driven between users, devices, apps, locations, and everywhere. Because there are employees, contractors, vendors, corporates. Just bring your own devices there. IoT systems. We're talking about IoT, OT, ICS, and whatnot. We have data centers, we have multi-cloud, we have SaaS, we have hybrid cloud, we have locations. Let's start understanding what we have and start addressing the issues if we want to talk about business. Now, it sounds like I've added all of it. I started off with open source. I started off with those attacks which are actually creating issues. Business is important. We can have everything, but if the business challenges are not addressed, we're in trouble. We are in really big trouble, which we don't want. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just do one thing. We're gonna sum it up here and we're gonna conclude. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope the session was useful. If you have any questions, please do feel free to post it here, and I would love to take up your questions. I'm there on LinkedIn. I generally don't miss to answer any of your questions. If you have if you ping me, I would love to have a discussion around anything cybersecurity, application security, DevSecOps, anything about OWASP. OWASP is my favorite gig where my volunteering activity I spend time on when I'm not working on my professional work, not working on my bread and butter. But this is something I would love to talk about anytime. If you have any questions around OWASP, I'm first ever women chair for OWASP and chair from India. So it's an honor to be working with OWASP. So anything I can be of help around that area, I'll be happy. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Vandana. I must say that that was a really, really very power packed session. And I'm sure all the viewers who are watching us right now have gained some really new perspectives with your talk. So thank you once again. And we have a question for you actually. The question is what is the biggest myth that you have come across in the mindset of an enterprise when it comes to building security in their framework?
If I have one team working on it, it's gonna fix everything. Or there was a discussion which was happening last week when I was at Black Hat. So somebody said, I have a beautiful DevSecOps practice set up wherein I have secure code review, I have testing, I have this, I have that, but all of them are not connected. But I have DevSecOps. So I need to tell people that this is a myth. If you have everything set up and not connected, you're secure. No, that's what we want. We need to connect everything so that you have a holistic view of everything what's happening around you. So that if something happens, you get to know and secure it. Or else we will be part of these attacks. These attacks will keep happening, which we don't want. We want our businesses to be secure. We want to earn revenue, and that's why we are in the business. So let's work towards securing our businesses, but understanding where things can go wrong. Because if you don't know, you don't know.
Right. And talking about security, I have seen that a lot of organizations are reluctant to, spend on security because, it comes with a cost. How do you convince such companies to, to imbibe security in their organization? Because of course it is very, very important. We are always imbibed with data threats all the time. So especially when it comes to new organizations or a startup, which has just started off maybe a few years back, they still are building up, they still don't have enough funds for it. How would you convince them that this is extremely important, as important as having an enterprise in the first place?
I will break it down in two parts. First, enterprises. Um, so, for enterprises, if you say that we don't have funds for security, then I will show you the statistics wherein the organizations said that we don't have money for security, and suddenly a breach happens, and then they have a huge amount of money for security. And then you start spending on tools. Then
Right.
you're going all jittery about it. So let's start from the beginning. Let's start training our teams. Let's have the right practices for our people, so that we are not in trouble. And we are not saying, you might not have a huge budget for security, it's fine, but be let's very clear that this is what can happen. Let's have a clear communication. Let people know that these are the tools that we can use, and these are the tools we can buy. But for small businesses, I can say a lot of times it's not possible to spend a lot of money because they're coming up, especially for unicorn startups. So what we can do is there are open source tools which can
Right.
help, which really can help, and you can set up your DevSecOps practice using open source tools. And if you want to reference, I created an architecture where you can use all open source tools and can run a pipeline or DevSecOps pipeline. I can help you out. Or there are people who have actually contributed to so many amazing projects. For dependencies, dependency check, OWASP dependency check is there. For testing an application, functional testing, you have OWASP Zap. Then you have SBOM, Cyclone DX from OWASP, and then even from Linux Foundation as well, SPDX. All these resources are available online. And then a friend of mine, DJ Shulim, he created a beautiful tester called DevSecOps Bomber that actually scans SBOMs as well, which is software bill of materials for supply chain. So all these resources are out there. Let's start using that. And trust me, they're beautiful. They're sometimes better than commercial tools as well. Like, I'm not against a commercial tool at all. I do love them. I do use them. I work for a vendor. But then I'm very vendor neutral, where I love to pick up open source first, evaluate what I know, what I have, and what I need. Because organizations pick up the tool because everyone is using it, and suddenly we can't use it because it's of no use for us because everyone was using it, so we bought it. So let's concentrate on those small, small items.
Right, and as you just said, Lynn, I think prevention is better than cure, right? Why to even go to that step wherein there's a data attack and you're in a very bad mess.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I think you gave a very very strong point, and I must say that thank you for talking about open source tools. I think all the viewers here, I mean, we should actually think about open source tools. They are free, they're readily available online, and as Vandana just said, we have options for data security softwares using open source technology. So yeah, I mean, I think if you have any questions on that, you can please approach Vandana. She's right here with us. And Vandana, how can people reach you? I mean, apart from LinkedIn, are you on Twitter or any other social media or email ID?
absolutely. You can reach out to me on my Twitter handle, which is infosec vandana. You would see that everywhere. I have a website with infosec vandana. You can reach out to me anytime. Please DM me. Feel free to DM me or send me a message on LinkedIn. I would love to have a chat around or feedback from the session. If you else from a business perspective, because I know that there are leaders to everyone attending this session, so I would love to learn from you because I accept that I don't know everything. I shared what I knew, or I shared from my experiences, so I would love to know from your experiences as well.
Yeah, as you just said, there's always room for growth. So thank you, Vandana. I mean, I must say that this was such an insightful session for all of us. And thank you for coming here once again at the DevOps India Summit. We are very, very happy to have you here with us for the third or fourth time. So hope to see you very soon in a very in-person session next year.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, and it was an honor to speak here. So looking forward to see you again next year and meet you in person soon.
Same here, Vandana. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we wrap up the simulating session with our speaker, Vandana. Thank you, Vandana, once again. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to come up with our next keynote speaker in some time. So please stay online because this session is going to be something that you do not want to miss. We have with us Mr. Dave Snowden, and he's going to join us in some time. So, with that, I will wrap up this keynote session. Our booths are all open. The quiz is open, so please go and participate in the quiz. And I'll see you in a very short while. Thank you.